Hello everyone, welcome to our first lecture into civil design drafting. In this lecture, we'll have a quick look and overview of the components that we'll be studying in this course. This is a simple graph of the main components we'll be studying in this course. Mainly, our design drafting will be divided into two components. We've got the road design and we've got the parcel design. So the parcel design talks about the new subdivisions and new urban sites, as well as working with existing sites. So when we say parcel design, it doesn't refer to the parcel that you send in the post. It's the envelope for a building, the site envelope, let's call it. We will have a quick example to see one of those in a minute. But before we go to the parcel design, let's have a discussion about the road design. For the road design, we'll be learning two main designs for what we call them rural roads, which is the country roads or the highway design. In other words, high-speed roads, as well as urban roads. They are both under the same road design, but categorically they are different. In the next few slides, we will have a quick look at a few examples, and that will tell us the main difference between the two. So for the first part, for the road design, the example of a rural road, as we discussed a minute ago, it's mainly looking at roads. They don't have too much for intersections. In fact, we are expecting the driver to drive on these roads with relatively higher speed compared to urban roads. Therefore, our design should take into account the conditions for that road, especially with high-speed driving. The other example of a rural road or the country road is what we usually call it the highway or the motorway, expressway, all of these different names. In other words, the high-speed roads. This is an example of one of those. It's divided to 4 different lanes. You may have one of these highways divided into 12 lanes. There's some different highways around the world. They divide it up to 26 and 30 lanes. So it's all the same concept for the design. We are mainly focusing on high-speed driving, and this is the main design criteria for these designs. We will learn how to deal with these designs. We will learn the main concepts and the basics for the high-speed road design. One of the main components that we will learn during this design are the road components, the names for each type of these components for the road design. And you see that will be different in the main components compared to an urban road design, which we will see in the next slide. So in this rural road or highway road, the components of the road are slightly different than the urban type of roads. So we'll have a look at all these components. We will learn the difference between them, and we have to learn the terminology or the names, the different names between all these components. An example of an urban road, we will have a quick look at the cross section for the road, the components for these type of roads, for the urban type of roads, as well as the other important components that we usually see in an urban area, but we don't see it in a highway arrangement or a country road. For example, the intersections, which are minimal in the rural roads, the closed-end roads. For example, this road here with a closed end, we call them cul-de-sac roads. We will have a look at how to design one of those. What are the important parameters for these designs? As you can see, even the cross-section of that road is different. The components that we should be expecting in an urban road are different than a rural road or a highway. After we finish with the road design, we'll move on to parcel engineering design. When we say parcel design, that means we are designing the land subdivisions, the new developments, the new areas, the new urban designs. How can we subdivide this land into different parcels, each one of those, the block of the land, to build a house on it, we call it a parcel. So how can we divide it into different parcels? What are the parameters for calculating the areas, the boundaries, all the engineering and survey components for these parcels. This is very important part of the design that you should learn, because this will set the foundation, the starting point for all the infrastructure design, the road design, the pipes, the power supply, all of those. That has to be started by mainly designing the parcels. So just to give you a quick example on the huge demand for this type of design, this is one area around Adelaide, for example, in South Australia here. And as you can see, this is the current developments around this area here. And if I just show you the future developments here, you understand how much demand these developments, we are expecting them to be everything red here. We're expecting all of those to be completed in the next maybe 5 years to the maximum. So as you can see, there's a huge demand on these type of designs. So the design of this block of land, an existing block of land, into different parcels, and working out all these parcels, the road designs around them, and the boundaries for each one of those, the areas, to make sure that we're meeting all the council requirements as well as the engineering designs criteria. So parcel designs, it could be on a smaller scale for a small land subdivision, something like that, or it could be on a larger scale for large subdivisions. It's all the same concept from our perspective for engineering design. The main thing for us to learn how to use the tools on the software that we'll be using for Civil 3D to subdivide a large block of land into smaller parcels and design all the engineering parameters for these new parcels. As well as working with new subdivisions, we'll be working with existing sites. For example, when we have an existing site and we have what we call the land title, this is an example of a land title for the parcel. How can we translate all this information and draw this on the computer? Because that will set up the foundation or the basics for our new design on the engineering. For example, if we're doing any site drainage for this site here, the first thing first we need to do, we need to draw this site, and we need to draw it accurately, especially if we are designing the site drainage or the areas, retaining walls. All of this information has to be defined accurately on the site plan. So we will learn also how to work with existing sites, how to draw their boundaries correctly for the civil design to be completed. So in order to get these two main components completed for the road design and the parcel design, we have very important starting point, which is a bit more theoretical starting point. We have to learn it. We have to take this step before we be able to start these two components here for the road design and the parcel design. The name of this component is the survey drafting techniques. In other words, simply, this will be just learning the language for civil design, the terminology. We have to speak the same language. So when I say horizontal alignment or vertical profile or a road profile or a tangent, road tangent, we have to understand those components. We have to understand this terminology in order to be able to use it in the road design. As well as for the parcel design, when we talk about the bearing, the northing and easting for a coordinates, we have to understand all of those before we'll be able to complete a parcel design. So the survey drafting techniques, that will be our first lecture, to talk about scales, pairing, coordinates in polar and rectangular coordinates. That will lead us to learn how to draw traverses and parcels, what we call them. Okay, so this is an overall view. It could be a bit more theoretical. In the first lecture after this one, I will move on directly to the starting point of the road design, which will lead us to go back and check all these techniques first. But in order to understand these techniques in a practical way rather than theoretical way, I'll show you a quick view of the road design, and that will come across almost all of these components to highlight the importance for each of those. So if you watch the videos with me, and we've got some tasks along these videos, I'm sure by the end of this course you will have a great idea on the road design and parcel design, and that will add a large amount of knowledge for your civil design drafting skills. Thank you guys. I'll see you in the next video.